What's up, guys? This is Dim, and today we're going to be tackling part of the patch notes that were released for Warlords of Draenor. Like I had mentioned in the summary video, I'm going to break this down piece by piece because, quite frankly, there is just so much information that was dumped on us that I wanted to address it kind of in a sectional manner, sort of how they broke down the patch notes. Now, the first thing that I was looking forward to the most is they kept talking about how they wanted to change the CC in PvP. They felt it was just out of control, there was just far too much of it, and that they were going to be making massive sweeping changes to it. So that was the first thing that I'm the most interested in, and this is what I'm going to bring to you guys. So, this is taken straight out of the summary from the World of Warcraft patch notes. First off, they are removing silence effects from interrupts. It still exists, but they are never attached to an interrupt. Disarms, gone! There are no more disarm abilities in the game at all. They reduced the number of diminishing return categories. So, now, all routes now share the same diminishing returns cooldown, so you can't get hit with one route from one class and one from another and have the timers completely restart. They are all on their own cooldown, except for the routes on charge abilities that have no diminishing returns, but they're very short routes instead. All stuns now share the same diminishing returns category as well. Same concept as roots. You cannot get multiple stuns and have your timer started over. Terrific! All incapacitate or mesmerize effects now share the same diminishing returns categories and have been merged with the horror diminishing returns category. Yes, this is going after slightly with the warlocks come to mind when they mention the horror category, but that means pretty much meses, fears, all those are on the same cooldown, so you are not going to be chain feared for 8 seconds from different classes back to back. Awesome. They removed the ability to make cast time crowd control spells instant with cooldown. That's right. There are no more palm sheeps. There are no more instant hexes. Excellent. Thank you. And a lot of the CC spells have been removed entirely and increased the cooldown and restrictions on others. Pet cast CC is much more limited and quite often removed. We'll go through that when we break down the classes. Cyclone can now be dispelled by immunities and mass dispel. It is no longer completely untouchable, but it still takes quite a bit of effort to remove it. So it needs a major spell like mass dispel, but there is a possibility to cleanse it. PvP trinkets now grant immunity to reapplication of an effect of the same spell cast when they break abilities with persistent effects like Solar Beam. And long fears are now shorter in PvP to account for the targets also needing to run backwards afterwards. So when they fear you away, if you get feared for 8 seconds out, that's 8 seconds back. That's no longer going to be the case. Things are going to be shortened. Again, we'll cover that individually with each class. But those are the summaries. That's the main view from Blizzard about the CC changes. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go through the classes, but they did have a little note in between saying that they've reduced the number of throughput, increasing cooldowns and procs in order to reduce burst damage. But they also want to know that while some classes have lost abilities or have had the power of abilities reduced, these were changed in the whole context of the big picture. So your class may be getting a nerf, but there's other classes that are getting nerfs as well for one giant goal. So, without further ado, let's go into the classes and what they pinpointed out. Druids. Cyclone can now be cancelled by immunity effects. Examples that they listed were Divine Shield, Ice Block, and can be dispelled by Mass Dispel. Disorienting Roar effects now shares diminishing returns with other Mez effects. Nature Swiftness can no longer turn Cyclone into an instacast spell. Solar Beam no longer silences a target again more than once per cast. Additionally, the silence effect from this spell now shares diminishing returns with other silences. There you go. Again, that goes right with what they said with the summary. No more instant crowd control abilities that completely take you out of the picture. And that's a good change. Hunters, this is a big one. Hunter pets no longer have crowd control abilities. They listed all the examples. They are all gone. Entrapment Roots now shares diminishing returns with other root effects. Scatter Shot, gone. Silencing Shot, gone. Traps and trap launchers no longer have an arming time and can instantly trigger. Buff. Traps can no longer be disarmed. Buff. Scare Beast now has a 6-second duration in PvP, which is down from 8 seconds. Most of the fears you'll see are now 6 seconds and down from 8 seconds. So it's a fair balance there. Mages. Dragon's Breath Disorient now shares diminishing returns with other Mez effects. Ice Ward's Frozen effects now shares diminishing returns with all other root effects. Improved Counterspell? Gone. And Poly cannot be turned into an insta-cast spell by Presence of Mind. No more instant sheeps. Monks. Fist of Fury no longer stuns a target more than once per cast, so you will not get stunned in one cast. It was overpowered. It's now reduced to 1 stun. The Glyph of Breath of Fire's Disorient effect now shares diminishing returns with all other effects, not on its own cooldown. Grapple Weapon, gone. That's part of the disarm change. Ring of Peace no longer silences or disarms enemies. It now incapacitates targets in the area for 3 seconds or until the target takes damage. This ability now shares diminishing returns with all other Mez effects. Spear Handstrike no longer silences the target if they're facing the monk. Spinning Fire Blossom's root effect now shares diminishing returns with all other root effects. Now on to Paladin. Blinding Light is gone. Repentance cast time has been increased to 1.8 seconds, and Turn Evil's cast time has also been increased to 1.8 seconds and has a 6-second duration in PvP, down from 8 seconds. Priests. Dominate Mind now shares diminishing returns with all the other Mez effects. Holy War Chastise now shares diminishing returns with all other Mez effects as well. Psychic Horror now shares diminishing returns with, you guessed it, all the other Mez effects. Psychic Scream is now a level 15 talent, replacing Psyfiend, and has a 45-second cooldown, which was increased from 30. Rapture no longer has any effects beyond removing the cooldown of Power Ward's shield. Void Tendril's root effect now has a chance to break if the target takes sufficient damage. Rogues. Dismantle is gone. Paralytic Poisons has been removed and replaced by Internal Bleeding. Internal Bleeding causes kidney shots to also apply a periodic bleed effect for 12 seconds with damage increasing per combo point used. So the ability has been changed around a little bit. Shamans have Ancestral Swiftness can no longer turn Hex into an insta-cast spell, which is in line with the Cyclone, and Polymorph changes with the Mage. Earthgrab Totem now shares diminishing returns with all other root effects. Maelstrom Weapon can no longer reduce the cast of Hex. And there was a bug fix, apparently with the Glyph of Shamanistic Rage. You should no longer cause Shamanistic Rage to incorrectly dispel Unstable Affliction or Vampiric Touch. That has been modified by the PvP 4P set bonus. Warlocks have quite a few changes. The Blood Horror cooldown has been increased to 60 seconds, up from 30, and now shares diminishing returns with other Mez effects. Spellhunter's Spell Lock now only interrupts spell casting and no longer silences the enemy. So you no longer have the silence and the interrupt, you only have the interrupt. Mortal Coil now shares diminishing returns with all other Mez effects. This goes in place with the Fear cooldown and timers. Observer. Optic Blast now only deals damage and interrupts spellcasting. The ability no longer silences the enemy. Same in line with the Fell Hunter. Seer's Magic cooldown has been increased to 30 seconds, up from 20 seconds. Succubus. Seduction and Shivara. The Mez now has a 30-second cooldown. Terror Guard no longer casts Terrifying Roar when it dies. Unbound Will's cooldown has been increased to 2 minutes, which is up from the current 1 minute. And for the Void Walker and Void Lord, the disarm has been removed from the game, just like every other disarm ability. Warrior, this is kind of a big change. Charge now roots the target instead of stunning. The root effect does not share a diminishing return with other roots. That was because it is a much shorter duration root. Warbringer now causes charge to stun the target for 1.5 seconds instead of rooting it. Disarm, gone. And Intimidating Shout now has a 6-second duration in PvP, which comes down from 8 seconds. So guys, these are the CC changes, and quite frankly, I am thrilled about them. All the classes are kind of on a level playing field now. The crowd control classes still have their crowd control, but it's been brought in line a bit. Certain things that weren't, quite frankly, with Cyclone, it wasn't touchable. You couldn't do anything with it. It was too overpowered. It needed to be balanced. the chain fears. There's no reason why you should be able to get feared by a warlock and then feared by a priest back to back. You're talking about 16 seconds out of combat if you don't have a trinket up or a fear break. Now, at worst case, you have 6, and then a diminishing return on that from there on after. It shouldn't be rotating classes, and quite frankly, I am really excited about that. There's some other changes in the patch notes that I'm a little iffy on, and I'm not sure how I feel about, but overall, the CC changes I am happy with. But guys, listen, like any beta or alpha, things are subject to change, but this is the state that we're at. What do you guys think? Do you think that this is finally going to balance out the CC issues that they have in PvP? Leave it in the comments. I want to hear from you. But this is Dim. You can follow me on Twitter at DimDoes, and I'll see you guys in Azeroth. Bye!